Welcome everyone to Numbers Therapy, episode 35. Today's episode titled The Art of Subjective Analysis. And if that title's confusing you a little bit, or it sounds like it's a bit of a conflict, that's intentionally so. The guest that we have on today has a different approach, an equally good one, if not better in some cases, but it's a different approach. And I think it's going to be a really fun episode to talk through. A bit quicker than normal. Purpose of Numbers Therapy, of course, is to talk through the macroeconomic, operational, financial, technical, trading-based, and other dimensions of Web3. We're putting the pieces together to help everyone understand the latest picture, to continue to elevate while also hearing some incredible backstories and having some good laughs along the way as well. Obviously, Numbers Therapy is for everybody, not just MVHQ. Of course, there's recorded listeners afterwards. So if you have any questions for the live audience along the way, be it an intro question on the definition of a term or an acronym, or if it's a more advanced question, please drop it in and I'll, of course, monitor and manage. We have a guest questions thread for the live audience. And then also, Numbers Therapy is rated NFA. As we know, it's not financial advice, as in none of what you hear in here is financial advice. So without further ado, and on to today's guest and episode. In addition to having one of the top 3 most iconic voices within MVHQ that always provides some great humor, today's guest is notorious for his different approach to NFT investing that goes counter to what almost all other traders and investors are doing. He comes from a non-quant background and is said to be leading the revolution against spreadsheets, from what we hear. However, despite this and not having a tech background, he has one of the best guts in the investing game, which has led to consistent returns and strong investment decisions and time prioritization, further showing that there's not just one way to invest your time and money in this space. He's also got a fascinating, relatable backstory that can be used to showcase yet another win and forward thinker, a theme, of course, within the Web3 community, emerging technologies, and certainly MVHQ. He's a great friend I love catching in New York, LA, and elsewhere. Always brings the fun, the creative, and the thoughtful. So everyone, please welcome Bando to the stage, everyone. Bando, how you doing today, man?
What's up, Aslo? Thank you for the very nice and warm introduction. I'm not sure I'm that great, but I'm excited. Take a trip down memory lane and talk.
I think you are that great, and I think time will tell also. Although I think the audience will think the same, and those who know you think that too. So let's maybe start with username first. I asked that question in the cases where I've never heard the backstory. Maybe you've talked about it before, but how did you get the name Bando? Where does that even come from?
Yeah, actually, where I live in the New York tri-state area. It's a kind of IRL nickname from some friends. There's just a local rapper in the town city I'm in who went by Bando, was partially his name, and the guy was such a character. And I was just obsessed with it, like sending all these pictures and videos. And so my friends just started calling me that. Because I just they got a kick out of it. I got a kick out of that. And the name stuck. And when I first signed up for NFT Twitter, I think I was Gutter Cat Cap. But I quickly changed it to Bando, realizing let me expand beyond Gutter Cats.
I mean, also, right, it would have been a big mouthful. Like, imagine to anybody listening that knows Bando, if his name were, what was it, Gutter Cat? What was the third word?
Yeah, it was Gutter Cat Cap, and then I was Funk for a while.
Oh, Funk original.
Funk, yeah. Yeah, so Poop and JJ, Jake, I was funking before this Discord evolved into Metaverse HQ. I was Funk at first. Almost forgot that.
I wonder.
Yeah, you guys, I need you guys to help me on the please in office hours chats because I'm horrible at remembering things.
All good. Crowds already helping. It seems like, and it seems like Funk would have worked. Bando is tight. If it were Gutter Cat Cap, that might have been a little bit of a mouthful. And I wonder if you would have would have come out with the same image with that. So I think you nailed it with Bando for whatever it's worth. Or Funk would have been cool too.
Oh, thank you.
So very, very cool. So before NFTs ever evilly came into your life, somewhere in between, what were you doing before, like pre NFT world, pre Web3 world? Like, where was your time and your attention? What kind of things were you doing?
Yeah. I work full time at an ad agency, and quote unquote full time, right? But I've always been interested in fantasy sports, daily fantasy, and to a lesser extent, sports gambling. But that was really where my interests laid. And those of you late night DJs and voice chat know, on the weekends I also do like to go out and enjoy myself with friends and family, whether it be at the local pub or going to live music, either concerts or a house show. So yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. You can't be in a much better city for that. So that totally makes sense. One of the really interesting things about you, I'd say, that I think probably helps form the foundation for how you approach things here is, where you spent your time and energy kind of studying, right? And so I know like consumer behavior was a big part of that, right? Can you talk to that? Like, why did you gravitate towards consumer behavior so much and spending time in that? Maybe even like, if you don't mind, like, can you just define what consumer behavior is for people in case they're not familiar, and why you were so interested in it?
Yeah, I mean, I probably can't give the correct definition, but I could give what my thought is and my thinking. And I think, from high school going into college, I was like, what do I want to major in? Right. I think a lot of people have that. And I've always enjoyed advertising. And beyond that, it was the consumer behavior. Like you said, it was, to me, it's what actions does someone take? Like, what's the thinking behind someone getting to buy something? And that was my favorite class in college. I really enjoyed learning and thinking about that, what on an ad or in their branding would get someone to purchase something. And even though like I don't have a creative background or work in creative, that always compelled me and led me to work in the ad world.
That's translation for the fact that while many of us think we're playing chess with analytics and spreadsheets and a variety of things, you're the one really playing chess, because most people go about it the analytics way, and you're looking at it from a totally different vantage point, in fact.
No, just a different way. I would say it's definitely I'm playing checkers, but there might be less people playing checkers.
Okay, it's a good analogy. I like that.
That's if using that analogy, I kind of think.
Yeah, that's good. So I know you were a top shotter to start. It sounds like you had some background in basketball and fantasy and all that good stuff. So when you saw Top Shot originally, I don't know if you were previously trading cards and things like that. So like, was that a pretty intuitive concept for you originally when you saw Top Shot, or was it just more like, you saw people making money, you happen to like basketball, and like in you go? Like, what was your mentality at that point?
Yeah, I think it was like the fantasy sports gambling aspect, and I never really had really always an NFL guy on that. Never, I'm a Knicks fan, long-suffering Knicks fan, but I haven't been watching as much NBA since trading NFTs and following NBA because it's just taken up so much of my free time outside of work. But it's funny, I went through in my parents' basement recently, like my old baseball cards. So I had always collected baseball cards, but not in a long time. So I'm not a physical collector. But what gravitated me towards Top Shot is like I could grasp the digital collectible standpoint. I could see that this could be the future. And it was actually, now I'm thinking about it, it was two things that popped up to me. The reason why I decided to spend all my money in Top Shot. And I was pretty early. I joined mid-January 21.
Oh, yeah.
Where their packs were sitting for $10 for days, I remember. And I was like, let me buy 3. Let me buy 2 more just to get the feel of it. And, I remember I think it was like Jack Settleman. Like there was 2 stats and that I kind of remembered, and was, I know at least one of them was from him. It was like that players or people spent $5 billion in the last so many years on FIFA, the video game, for player characters that expired at the end of the season. So that utility was only good for that soccer season. So there was a huge market for that. And then there's the discussion of Fortnite. And all these things are foreign to me, by the way, because I am not a gamer. I don't follow that at all. And just hearing how big the market was for Fortnite, how many players there were, and the average age, and the microtransactions, or whatever it be, and I'm thinking like, I want to get involved in this in Top Shot, because these teenagers, when they get money, they're gonna, they are living in a digital first world. They don't care about toys, like they don't care about material things as much as digital collectibles. So that was where I kind of changed my whole mindset, and I said, I'm going all in on this.
I think there's going to be several people who can correct me or build on top of what I'm saying in the live audience, so please do that if so. But just to lay out the timeline here for anybody that didn't come out in Top Shot land and not gloss over what Bando was saying, January in that year, where he was buying unlimited packs if you wanted to, all you had to do was fast forward to like the end of January or February when it started to majorly spike at that point, right? So it's kind of like almost as if, Bored Apes were sitting there unminted, right? And then like a week later, it spikes up into eternity. I mean, maybe not quite the same level necessarily, although it did really, really spike. And I think that was roughly the timeline. So the fact that you were at that point in January and then just, had the thought process and then just weeks later it starts to go it's something not to be glossed over, definitely.
Yeah, it was wild time, end of February. And I think that's when that huge spike, it was the same day there was the Barstool article and a Fortune article and a Forbes, and they said, oh, Roham's like, we're not doing whatever. I could rant forever on how they screwed that up, and I have in MVHQ voice chat before. But after that, I really I went to Florida for a month. I sold some moments, and the only thing that came across, I checked out of what was then TSIC, Top Shot Investment Club, that evolved into MVHQ. I checked out for about a month and a half, and I saw the monkey pictures. I was like, I'm not paying $250 for this. Like, I have my Top Shot stuff. So I really took a couple month break before I got into NFTs, I would say.
So what's funny about that is I had a pretty similar story myself, I would say. And what's funny is like, we latched onto the first concept, which was just digital assets and cards, right? No problem at all, right? Like moments, totally okay, opportunity, all the whole premise that you had before about like how big the market was and everything. And yet part of it was like the market cooled and then you probably stepped away, right? But it's also like, because it came out in a different form where all of a sudden it was ape pictures instead of moments, the same person who was able to connect the moments earlier didn't always connect the fact that it made sense with ape pictures as well, right? It's just like super fascinating because you'd expect that same person to like perfectly be able to carry through, and it's yet a different, it's a different experience. And I guess that even comes up now where like there's examples of use cases that may still be a little bit foreign or hard to follow. So it's almost like you have to reconvince yourself every time and like study whether it makes sense or not.
Right. Yep. No, that's definitely true.
So, okay. So, like you said, you started in Top Shot, fast forward a little bit, month and a half off, 2 months off. And, you see these pictures. And of course, like ETHLand starts to pop off, right? ETHLand and beyond, I guess we would say, but definitely ETHLand starts to pop off. And so as you see, there's like tons of projects flow. How did you wind up getting your bearings? Like what convinced you at that point to come back into the space, if you remember? And like, given how many projects were kind of starting to flow, even in the beginning, a little, obviously not as fast as months later, but even in the beginning, how did you get your bearings basically in that and like convince yourself back, to enter back, if you remember that?
Yeah, I really wish I remembered more. I remember it was beginning mid-June. And I have to like stress and preface this with, I have no clue what crypto is besides a very, very top line understanding. I didn't have any Coinbase account. I didn't have a MetaMask account. I've never traded crypto. I've never owned Bitcoin, ETH, anything. Even when I was doing Top Shot, and even after that, the many months. But being in, and I didn't even know what Discord was until the Top Shot Discord. And I, landing in MVHQ before, like again, was Top Shot Investment Club, it was kind of a pulse of what else was going on. And I saw here in another group I'm in with some Top Shot traders, like the art for gutter cat gang, and I'm like, this looks really fucking cool. Let me put some money into this after I paid off my credit card bills for running them, maxing them out on Top Shot. So I sold moments there. I still have a little bag. But I was like, let me put some money in Gutter Cat. This art looks awesome. And people will remember that I think it minted for like 0.06 or something. And there was so much FUD around the drop. Someone found out how to mint early, and then like the supply was crushed early. I think I bought like right after it minted out for, I don't even remember 0.2, but like I got scared off and I sold it immediately. And then like within the next like day or two, I'm like, what am I doing? Like this, I still believe in this. And I think it could be a part of be something early. And then I bought back in for a higher price.
I think it's pretty impressive that you were able to like reorient yourself there and go back to like what your thought process was, especially when people may be thinking flipping and you could have easily changed your game. So let's pull this back for a second, right? Like 90% of investors that are out there, right, or traders that are in here and otherwise, tend to come with like a technical edge, right? Technical chops, analysis skills, insight and trend analysis, chart reading, I don't know, whatever, right? Something on the more technical side of things. That's not you, right? Like that's not you at all. At least as you and I have always talked, that's not your background, right?
No, I've never owned a stock in my life. Like I have my 401k, and that's about it. No other investments, no real estate, no car, nothing, no crypto. That's it. No more bonds.
So what? Yeah, then what is your frame? Like, how do you think about projects? Like, I know you shared a little bit with Gutter Kicking, right, about what your thought process was, but how do you view what a good project may be? Like, what are the signals that you look at, and what are your advantages? Would you say to being able to decide whether to mint or hold something or even sell something possibly? What are your advantages?
Yeah, I think. Oh, I'm horrible at selling things, as everyone knows, but I think my edge is in buying things early and stocking up for things I believe in. And it's kind of hard to articulate, but my thought, like I always go back to a basic thought. I think is that what's the appeal going to be, and how appealing is something outside of just like the 100% general degen hardcore NFT trader, if there's mass appeal to it. And that could be like something on the roadmap. I feel like a lot of the time though it's the art, for me, and actually it comes back to the art.
Yeah, and the consumer behavior side of things, right?
Yeah,
like you're looking at this and saying, it sounds like not just do I like this, not just do I think this is excellent art, but because you're already naturally thinking in the lens that you think through, right? Do I think a lot of other people are going to like this thing from the art vantage point? Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, and I think in the back of my head, it's like, is someone going to pay more for this than I paid? And do I feel like I'm an early to this? I think that's the number one thing I would say. Like that goes through my mind. Like what's going to be that? Why would someone pay more for this than I'm paying for that?
That sounds like a pretty good framework, to be honest.
Yeah, pretty basic, right? But that's kind of what I think. And I personally think like everyone that's like hardcore degen trader in the Discord on NFT Twitter, like I feel like 99% of them come from either a crypto background or stock trading background or gamer, or maybe like a Web2 business, or Web3 entrepreneur. And I am none of those. I'm kind of thinking like what's going to bring on like a general person, what would they be attracted to?
Yeah. But your hit rate is just like, it's very high. Like you're very, very good at this. And for me personally, like one of the things that I always remember in being in VC and kind of watching you, and when you poke in, other than the aforementioned drunk nights where you would come in and ask what's minting, put those aside for a second, was when you'd come in and like there'd be like an art blocks, for instance, and you'd always be, or almost always be, one of the first ones to identify which piece on secondary you thought was amazing. And like the gauge that I used for that, I was never very good at that, but like the gauge I used for that was when I was looking around, and people were responsive to that, right? It wasn't just like hype cycle stuff. It was also, people were like, oh, this is sick, or thumbs up, so et cetera, right? Those kinds of signals. And you were just always on top of it. Like it seemed like you always nailed which was the specific piece in the Art Blocks collection, for instance, that was going to fly and that people were going to love afterwards. And conversely, I remember having examples where I had to like take polls in here to figure out which thing to buy because I had just no clue about it. So it's like it's a really, really good skill that you have that I don't know, I find to be really, really impressive, man.
Well, I appreciate that. And I don't. It's weird. I don't even like see myself like that much. I never. I don't own any physical art. I was never one to go to art galleries, but I've become like such an enjoyer of generative art and how it's one code that makes all these beautiful outputs. And I think like Art Blocks took a turn where at the beginning where it was like if you just heavy gas it, you're just printing money because there's some buyer like that's going to buy it after you, and that changed the Dutch auction, and where a lot of people, and still to this day, were like trying to get, and I think the market's become overall much better, but like trying to foresee, this one's going to do good. Like, and we joke around about it. This next Art Block's going to be brick because this past one did so good, right? And that's still kind of true. I kind of thought that, looked at Rarity and hung out in Art Block Discord and see what some of the big buyers were, and kind of transferred that over to like play with outputs and see what the outputs would be for the next drop. And one thing that helped like contextualize or give me more thought was, I'll remember Grape Dutch, shout out to MVP Grape Dutch, always said like it's a past like the hotel art test, and I think that helped me even more.
That's a good frame.
Yeah. Now, I think that still holds true. The ones where I've screwed up is I screwed up not holding my gazers because like not reading the description and not seeing that there's technically something going on here that's more than meets the eye. So I try to do that now.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So, I guess the related question that comes to my mind is, you've identified where your strengths are here, right? Like it's very, very clear where your strengths are. So as a result of that, what does that mean for where you spend this time investing in this market? Like, are there kinds of projects or timing of projects that you will invest in that you absolutely won't touch because you think you're just at too much of a disadvantage? Like, how do you think about what game, in quotes, you want to play, or like what kinds of projects you want to focus on? Where is your attention usually?
Yeah. Oh, that's a tough question. That's a good one. Because I feel like last year I didn't do much buying at all. Mm-hmm. We're in a bear market. I realized I'm not good at degen flips, partially because I have like hundreds of tabs and things open on my computer and it's not fast enough. And I don't know how to bot, nor ever looked into that.
Right. Oh, hold on. Before you keep going, Bando, can you tell the story about your initial computer, by the way, and then compare? Oh, can you talk about that real fast? And then we can go back to this. I just don't want this story to be lost a second.
Yeah. And I see JJ's listening. He might not remember this one, but he might get a kick out of it. In like the first few months I was minting, I didn't have a computer. I was working off of my work laptop. And I installed MetaMask and whatever, and I'm minting. I'm like, shit, like these hype mints, like it just takes forever to go through. And popped into VC, and like JJ was screen sharing something and buying, and I like freaked out. I was like, holy shit, how does your MetaMask pop up so quick? Like, what the fuck is going on? Mine is so slow. So like that day, I'm like, I bought a new computer, and it just, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. But yeah. So now I have my computer that I but yeah, that was fun.
But most people are worried about like all the other variables, right? Like how good is their Wi-Fi? How secure is it? Like any other variable whatsoever you can come up with. And for you, your variable was, I mean, computer to some extent, right? But not to the extent of like, I have a slow second time passed over probably, IBM computer that came from work that's super, super slow, let alone like the security
Mhm.
issue possibly with that too. That's
Yeah.
incredible. I love that story.
Yeah.
Okay. So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. Back where we were going.
No. Yeah, I forgot what we were talking about.
So yeah, just how do you spend your time and focus in
Oh,
terms of which NFT projects to attach to?
yeah. I mean, as everyone knows, I'm always maxed out on my Discords, and I try to pop into a lot. And there's so many different alpha communities. Um, JJ helped jog my memory on this, like before we had on this call, because my memory is so shot about what I used to do and kind of like what I do. I don't think about it. I don't have any process, but I kind of like get sentiment from different alpha groups. Like I used to spend a lot of time in the CryptoPunks Discord, and I feel like that's given me an edge in some plays. You know, mid stuff like I don't grind to get on whitelist, but I'll make the effort to join everything, even though 99% of it's garbage. I don't buy too much on secondary. Maybe I do. I don't know. I just have so many NFTs and I'm so way too overexposed. But like I was hyped for Sewer Pass. I made sure I had a little bit of ETH set aside for that. The Harvest, the previous art box curated, I like really bullish on that. Made sure I had ETH set aside for that. I don't think there's any like rhyme or reason. I just make sure to be in a lot of, I think it's worth the price to be in other communities. And VHQ is still my home base, of course, but to get other perspective of what people are saying, what people are doing. And then that helps you to know what to stay away from too. Like maybe what the botters are going after, like if you're not too bullish on there. But I don't even know. To me, I don't even know my like previous few secondary plays besides Sewer Pass and what came before that. Like I block stuff out of my mind, not by choice. But there's just so much going on in this market.
Yeah, that makes sense. It sounds like in general, obviously if it's like a hotter market, more going on, I get the point. But it sounds like just in general, you tend to take more of a patient approach, right? Where you're like poking around, getting information, forming your own opinions, and thinking through. And then at the correct time, which may not be dead perfect because that's that chart reading that's not you, right? But at approximately the right time, you're coming in and you're buying at that point, or doing whatever you think is appropriate, right? So it seems like it's a more patient approach than the average person, I guess, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that too is because of how exposed I am to NFTs. Like, it's not a good thing to have 95% of your net worth in NFTs, but I do.
Well, it's not a good thing maybe in December 22 or January 23, although at some point it might look good.
Right. Like I have my bags packed in like the end of 21 and they're still packed. And I've done a bad job of like letting things go. So I've kind of been slightly, I've definitely been up since then. Right. And even though with ETH crashing and coming back a little bit, like I'm definitely grinding more to make those realized or unrealized gains. But I still have like of my NFT portfolio, like 90% in like big ticket, long-term things that I believe in.
Yeah. That makes sense. And, like it can be forgiving, right? A little bit frustrating, maybe short term, right? But then at least you have these lessons next time and then you can adapt, right? So I guess that's the good news there. And you have good stuff. That's also good news.
Yeah. And I think just on that, I'm just thinking about something else, like in the same vein, is that I've done a bad job at leaving liquid for plays I believe in. Because even though, like you mentioned, you said my hit rate's really good, and it has been, like thinking back, like that would be like the hit rate. I'm buying projects that are good and really limiting my losses on things that haven't done well. With that, because I haven't allocated enough liquid, I haven't been able to go in as hard on things that I should have, that I really believed in, especially looking back a year ago.
Yeah. I mean, that is putting aside what you said about having your bag still right, and let's just assume maybe you did cycle some of that. That's a hard skill, right? Like, figuring out right term typically is like opportunity cost, right? But it's a tough skill of figuring out how to utilize and mobilize your ether, your cash fast enough, right? Should I move out of this to move into this now? Is it the correct timing? Notwithstanding using charts and things like that. That's hard, man. To time that stuff perfectly and weaving, bobbing and weaving, like that's not an easy thing to do.
For sure.
I appreciate your putting light on that. Can we talk? Let's talk a little bit about conviction and kind of what it means to you. So I guess maybe first off, and just the Bando definition of conviction, or at least like how you thought about conviction, given everything you've seen, in the past year or a couple of years, let's say.
Yeah, and I wish I learned to trust my gut earlier, because, like I said, I would have made sure to sell more things, to allocate more things of the things I fully trusted in, because so now it's once every couple months. It used to be like a couple times a month, maybe. But to me, conviction is just a feeling that there's going to be more buyers than sellers, that I'm going to be able to buy something and sell it for more. Kind of going back to like the consumer behavior, or that's what I call it, or what's going to make someone purchase this higher? What's going to make this more? What's going to make this last beyond a couple days?
I think what's really tough about conviction and like the way you're describing, the way you think about it, right? What's tough, I feel like, for myself, or for probably other people, is if you're going with a quant, at least like a partially quant-based approach, charts, data, whatever, right? Then by definition, that kind of means you're looking at signals that are external, right? That have almost nothing to do with your thinking. Therefore, your focus tends to not be on what does my gut actually say. Maybe it's like a secondary thing, right? Where you're looking at the data and then you're saying, does this also make sense to me? But usually in most cases, right, with the time horizons people have, like they're kind of not looking at that necessarily. And the thing is that's the valuable thing, I guess, about conviction is that it probably means other people are not necessarily thinking that, or you just think it more heavily than them. So it therefore means you're probably catching it when others are not in the exact same place, which means the things might be underpriced, or you may have a good opportunity to get in, right? Or you have an opportunity to go harder than the average person because you really, really believe in something. So I think the trickiest part about that is when using data to be able to make decisions, like even using the data and all the great tools that are out there, you're still only going to get like 80% of the way, right? So at some point you're going to have to shift over to gut and make a call on things. And in your case, I think what's so impressive is I think you've just trained yourself, because you're not quant, like you said, you've just trained yourself to go that much more heavily on your gut. And it's interesting that it winds up resulting in good decisions at the end of the day, right? Which is not what most people I think would think. Thoughts about that?
And I think some of it stems from, like, I started with such a small bankroll, relatively, let me say. I put every single dollar I had into NFTs, and it was really just in Gutter Cat in the beginning. I think that was it. And it was $7,000 USD. And not having a large bankroll, I wasn't able to make as many plays as I wanted to, where I knew we were in a full bull straight euphoria market. Like, I want to mint 100 cool cats, but I could only afford to mint 10 at 0.02. And that was all I could afford. I think, sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Oh, just the point that, like, at any given point, like, you're going to have to make a decision, and you're going to have imperfect information, right? So you don't use as much data, let's say. You use signals, no doubt about it, how you described it, but some people use like hard data, right?
Right.
And in your case, the balance is a little bit differently, but what's so great about that is that you've learned to train your gut appropriately, and therefore, you can trust it more.
Right. And I watch nerds and watch charts, and like, if there's something I feel good about, I'll let it retrace and then buy. That's just a given that's going to happen now with every project, except for Moonbirds, which I'm super bitter about. At least the first couple weeks of that, if I remember correctly. But yeah, relying on gut and relying less on charts, just being with experience, and being early too is like a huge part of it. And MVHQ, of course, has led the way in that with a lot of information out there. Like I remember Anonymice, like that was one of my biggest cooks. So I just think the combination of that. Does that answer the question though? Really?
Yeah, totally. I mean, this is why I'm so excited to have you talking here, because I think your approach is just so different and weighted so much different, so differently than most folks, to be honest with you. And I think the fact that it just showcases that, but everyone knows how good you are at what you do and thoughtful. It's great. It's great to be able to showcase that.
Yeah, I'm just horrible at articulating it, but like I'm also not afraid to make big plays. One of my favorite things is making big plays on small, mint-sized projects.
Do you have any examples, Bando, by the way, where you had gut instinct on something and you decided to go heavier and it worked out well, or maybe you had a gut instinct and didn't go heavy enough and you were kind of kicking yourself? I feel like that second one is really easy to find, right? Because there's so many things you can kick yourself on for not following enough. But maybe the first one, anything where you did go with your gut and it worked out well, and kind of what that was like.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, I remember sitting in voice chat, and shout out to whoever posted about Anonymice. I might have found it somewhere else. I don't know. And I think JJ was kind of the same way, where it was 1 mint per transaction, and I just zoned out, and just, this is before I knew what a bot was. There was probably bots, and I just kept clicking Anonymice more and more, as many as I could get until it sold out, because it might have been free or 0.01. I was like, this is something new. This is on chain. And then people joke around like on chain is the buzzword. That was the meta right then. I'm like, this is going to do amazing. So that was one where I went hard, right? Is that kind of what the question was? I forgot again.
Yeah, exactly. Where you thought there was an opportunity and your gut said something made sense for whatever reason and you pressed it. Yeah.
I'm looking back. I'm so bad at remembering, as I told you. I'm just looking at this like my per charts.
Maybe that's you're a football guy. Maybe that's one of your other good attributes, right? Like a good quarterback that forgets the last 3 interceptions, right? But is able to just still rip it afterwards, like Trevor Lawrence, I guess. Maybe that's one of your
I mean, like Mutant Cats, thinking all the way back. I'm just like, this is an incredible Ponzi, and the art is really good. And just maximize that. Like there's been a few times like I went all in for flips, where I got enough. Like I think I got like minted 50 Mutant Cats, something around there. But yeah, there's some good stories about ones where I was unable to get more.
That totally makes sense, and I can understand in that case, right? Like there was some meta, there was some swirl going around. Do you have any examples that stand out to you? And again, if you don't have anything in mind, all good. But any examples where everyone was very hot on something, and you were looking at it, and you're like, just no effing way. Like I do not see this at all. I do not agree with what everybody's saying. You didn't go with it, and maybe you were right in that case. Does anything pop up about that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, and I used to fudge shit. And people know I'm noted for that.
We'll get to that in a second. We'll get there's a segment on that, okay? We'll get to that in a second, I promise you.
But there's like plenty of things that people are hyped on, and like, I don't see it. Definitely not. I'm having a hard time remembering it. The one I do remember, because I fucking gave into it, even though I absolutely hated it, was Pixen. And I bought like the top of those. Oh, let's go. Sorry. I just, my harvest just sold for 8.8. I got the live feed. Okay. All right. Sorry, I got that on my second screen, a live feed of the listings and buys.
That's awesome, man. It's live action, and it's just bolstering your case more for your approach. So it's good.
But yeah, I think like Project Pixen, was I was like, this art sucks. Like, this is just hype built on that nano pass. It's not like people are calling it Zuki. I'm like, I don't like anime. I've never watched anime. I know nothing about that, but I had Azuki was something special to me. I had like a visceral reaction to looking at them. I was like, these look really cool, but in Project Pixie didn't do it for me. So I wish I faded that. I didn't, but that was like one of my biggest L's, buying that. But I'm trying to think of other ones that, you know, there's plenty of times where like I just didn't mint at all, even though, you know, and it doesn't always work out. But that just the hype like wasn't worth the price to me.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I mean, if it makes you feel any better on missing out, I remember vividly sitting there, very, very vividly sitting there as Wolf Game was minting at the time. And absolutely, I won't second guess this, but absolutely, my gut was saying at the time that this does not make sense. It's the wrong timing, all those things. And we all know how that wound up. So there you go.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about that one. Because I was like on vacation somewhere and I max minted and I couldn't mint anymore. But that was like another, it's like, this is something different. This is a good Ponzi. Oh, man. And then I held, wow, I got to look back at that one. But I do remember that I was in Colorado and like that was the peak. It was November 21, I guess. It was like that was the peak of how much my account was worth. If only I sold some things or sold ETH actually.
Yeah. So okay. So I mean, you touched it earlier. We had to go there. Right? There's no way we weren't going there. We've got to spend some time talking about the Bando FUD. Absolutely can't miss that today, of course. So, you know, the FUDding, the spaces that you run, how did that come about originally? Was it just like Bando having fun and catharsis? Was it strategic FUDding because you were pissed off and you wanted to stop bad projects from doing things that shouldn't be happening? Like, what were you thinking at that time? Or were you just having some fun?
Yeah. Like just, it's really like from a good place. Like nothing was targeted at, I just felt really passionate about some scammers in this place and about like why some people are supporting a project. Look, like I've become more of a flipper, like a lot of people have. But I just felt compelled. And I think it's just my personality to like make my voice heard because especially like with the Twitter space, it's like I learned quickly that not everyone is seasoned as a lot of people in MVHQ, you know, going back a year or so. And I was like, there's so many ignorant people that don't even know what we know. So like, why not hop on a space and talk about it? And like how like, oh, they're doing shady shit on the contract or this person's rugged before. I just felt like I had to get the word out because not enough people were like talking about things. I can't think of like anything else specific though, besides that fishy fan space that blew up.
I think
that Poop reminded me of.
Yeah, I'm happy you described that. I mean, I kind of had a sense that's what it was, but I mean, it's kind of awesome, right? Like somebody did need to do that, right? Somebody needs to protect, or you know, I know we're all working together on it, but like people in general need to protect what we're doing, and with what you were doing, it's super, super valuable. Protecting the new people, protecting, you know, what's expected of the space and like how it functions. So I think it's really, really cool what you're doing, to be honest with you. I can also see remnants of like the New York East Coast like chip on your shoulder kind of thing catalyzing that too, right? Where you see the project owners doing things that are just not okay, rugging, and you're thinking to yourself, you know, fuck you, you fucking fuck, you know, New York style, and then that catalyzing it in the beginning too. But I think it's great that you did that.
And I kind of learned quickly that like I'm an outsider in the space, or at least was like early on, where there might be more, you know, even though I'd say that there's many more like introverted people in the space, and I wasn't afraid to like let my, you know, voice be heard. But of course, whatever, I'm not doxxed, so I guess that's easier than not. But you know, I believe in this space long term, so I'm not afraid to call out, or wasn't afraid it's different now, I feel like, but to call out like true people that were misleading.
Yeah. So I haven't been following. Yeah, exactly. So exactly what Jake was asking right now, which is my question too, is I assume you're not doing as many of these kind of FUD spaces anymore, right? Or are you doing the FUD spaces? And if so, like, has something changed? What's the difference?
No, I think I only I think it's only been like 2 or 3 spaces that I open up. Like, let's talk about this. But I don't know. Like, the space has changed so much overall that there's no like big focus on projects that are like knowingly misleading.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the mints, everyone that get hype are not fast rugs anymore, right? They could all turn into slow rugs, but I'm sorry, this is horrible, but I'm just like, I can't really articulate it, but the space has changed so much. But I'm happy to do any spaces for something that like I believe in, that the word needs to get out. The space has become smarter too, you know?
Yeah. I just want to mentally prepare you that like while you're getting your recharge right now and your relaxation in this market, it's moving a little bit slower. It's harder to do things like that. It would be magnified that much more. The profit motive is not there to all those things, right? So I just want to mentally prepare you for the fact that there's a complete expectation that as the market starts to heat up again, that you're going to be fully on call at that point to restart the Bando FUD spaces, and that's totally going to be expected of you. So I just want to make sure you know that that's the case.
I am so here for it. Anytime.
Amazing. So at the current point, right, lately, as you know, like the last month or something in that direction, the space has gotten a little bit warmer at this point, right? So good news, of course, in general, a little bit of January stuff, but just in general, like good news, people putting more attention here. We have some of the interest rate hiking behind us. Who knows if we'll have more of it, in the economy. Probably a little bit more of that stuff, but we're heading in some direction, right? So we know we're going to be back at some point soon, or at some point in the near future. Where's your head at there? Like, are there certain kinds of projects that you're more excited about, and that you're either spending more attention on now, or you're excited to see where it goes? Is it going to continue to be more, art first, or at least like the lens that you have, art first, but then also looking at kind of the other benefits and roadmap elements that exist? Like, where's Bando's head at?
Yeah, I would kind of say that. I think that's fair. Art first, and then see where everything else is at. To me, though, and it's just like my situation that I don't have liquid, is like I'm just looking for points to sell some things in the next few months. I have a couple big life expenditures probably coming up shortly. And like I said, 95% of my net worth is in NFTs. So I'm more looking at picking points to sell, but of course I'm always looking to accumulate. I'm a little more bearish, I think, like on short-term outlook, and that's kind of always been my way of thinking, and that's why I haven't left myself. I'm super overexposed to NFTs, but like not one project except for when I bought my eighth and went all in on that. But yeah, I'm going to continue to evaluate, like, I think art and consumer sentiment first, and trying to get an edge in using Discord to kind of get sentiment. Yeah, but you prod a little more on that, because I'm not sure if that's what you're looking for.
I think that makes sense. I mean, I think what you're saying is, what I hear you saying earlier is, right, you're not just looking at art projects anyway. Like, yes, you may be looking at art blocks, and that is more of an art project, right? But you've given other examples where, it's not just a pure art project, right? It's a benefits and kind of membership oriented project where you get perks and roadmap and all that stuff. But you may look at the art first, for instance, as your initial test of like, how cool is this? How much are people going to like it? Maybe then look at the roadmap a little bit. So it seems like that's your vantage point, right? It's like you're very good at assessing art, hotel tests, like you said, and then on top of it, figuring out just what kind of cool shit in general that people are going to like, and figuring out those trends earlier. I wonder if it's also your advertising side of things, like having a good sense of like what's going to get people to click and convert. If that's maybe where your head, connects on it too, and just a really good advantage for you.
Yeah, when we first spoke, just to prep a little bit for this, like I think that's just my passion, let alone not my experience. Like that, what my actual work experience wouldn't lend itself to that. I think it's just my passion and the way my brain operates. Being horrible at math and analytics, but the other side of it being all right at that. I think that's just how I operate to identify things.
Yeah. I mean, that's even more impressive, I would say, right? Because then you were just figuring it out yourself and naturally got there. So, humble brag, man. I know you're not trying for it.
Nah.
Humble brag, nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have thousands of dead NFTs. There's a lot of other degens do, like really bad ones, and not every art play, 30, 40%, 40% of the art plays like don't work out, or I'm selling it for mid cost. But I'm okay like taking those big risks. A lot of times I hold my bag hold for too long and I have to sell for a small loss,
Yeah. Well, I mean, this was absolutely awesome. I had lots of questions that, since we got to meet and talk originally and hear you, lots of questions that you were able to talk through in terms of your background, how you think about things, that I was super excited to get through today, and to now hear it from you was just absolutely awesome. We now know, even more behind the voice and the drunken what's minting questioner, amongst other things, which is very, very cool. So I'm really appreciative for you coming on and talking through all this. It also for me, gave me a little bit of a different lens to think about things, right? And like trusting gut and taking a different perspective on it. And even something is what sounds as so obvious, like you said, as are there buyers for this thing, right? And will they buy at a higher price? And thinking about it through that lens, which sounds so obvious, is a useful thing to hear. So I'm super appreciative you came on, man. Absolutely awesome. Couldn't have a better way kind of wrap up a Friday. Very, very cool. For everyone, listening live, questions, comments, jokes, I really appreciate you, like always. And we'll do similar time next week, probably back to Thursday, but we'll see how next week goes. And thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you down in VC1.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Really flattered that you guys had me. And wow, there's 47 people listening live. That's awesome. And happy to talk further. I hope someone could pull something out of this for value, even though to me, I'm just like rambling the entire time. And just reminiscing like the good old days. But happy to hop down to VC1 and keep the convo going for a little bit. Some other things I noted, but this was great. Thank you so much for asking me to do this.
For sure, man. For sure. Awesome. All right, everyone. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Great job, fellas. Great job. Great work. That was awesome. Great conversation, Bando. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Like always.
Yeah, right back at you, Aslo. Great work, buddy.
There was we're not recording anymore, right? Or you could stop it whenever.
It depends what you say. If you say something bad, we're recording. Yeah,
we'll let you know after.
I didn't even look at like my notes. There was like things I wanted to touch on when I was like fumbling for things to touch on.
Uh-huh.
And that I didn't even mention the JJ before. Like Cryptodes, that was just a legendary night.
Yep.
I feel like that was one of my best contributions, where I had been in the Punks Discord and I was in the Cryptodes Discord, but I didn't know what it was, and I missed the ping from there that like the whitelist mint was happening. So I totally missed the entire whitelist mint. But then I heard someone ask, like, "Hey, what's this?" It might have been Tice, like Tice. It was like, "What's this Cryptodes minting?" It was like, "Oh my god!" I go, everyone. This is a Punks project, max mint everything you can. This is the biggest win ever. And I just remember buying. It was like 0.1 ETH. I bought 10, and then I couldn't buy any more. It was sold out, and because I wasn't good at fucking MetaMask and shit, and I was so pissed about that. But that was an unbelievable cook that just like went all the way up. I kind of papered my rare at 8.8 to D's when it pumped so high. I wanted to touch on that, but that was a great one for anyone. Oh, there's still 47. Everyone's still here listening.
I don't get this treatment, by the way, Bando. So just want you to know that this is all you in this case, man. You know, this is the Bando treatment.
What do you mean?
I mean, I'm saying there's 47 people sticking because of you, man, because of your voice. So just remember that.
Well, thanks everyone. Like I told you, like I feel really bad that I'd only listened to the last one with Dizzy because I was just happened to be like on and saw the ping. Because I'm horrible at catching up with pings, like I just mentioned for the Cryptodes thing. But that's great. Yeah, there's so many OGs here. It's great. And then the other thing was I wanted to talk about like my like one of my biggest L's I remember was Gary V. That if you could get in on something when Gary V popped, like we were all here like early to Moby, or there might have even been something else where we could track wallets, and like there was a time where if you just followed Gary V and flipped, like you were instantly profitable. But then it started to slow down where those flip windows, you definitely remember Poop, like it got smaller and smaller. And the last thing, this is literally the last thing he minted, I think, on that wallet, in the bull market, were these fucking Al Pacino's daughter's movie pictures from it.
Yeah.
I still have a bag of them, but I'm like, fuck it, I'm going all in, guys. And I bought like 5 ETH worth, and I never do that. And it pumped to like 2.5x, and I just couldn't list them fast enough, and I just held for too long. And then they were like 0.02, and I think they're still at like 0.02, 0.03, and I think they cost me 0.1. That was a lesson to be learned too there. And that fucking always fade photography, except of course I saw my Quantum pass 2 days ago because I'm like, this Aversano Polaroid drop is going to go to stay at mint price, and now it's like triple mint price. But that was me not listening to the macro information too, where JJ the GOAT was just, told me to be hesitant about photography. But I'm like, no, it's fucking Gary V. And then it died.
There's always something to
Recorded, by the way.
everything, right? Always something to learn.
And last thing, my biggest fumble, minting crypto dick butts when a lot of people weren't minting them. But again, I was following like punks were minting them. And that was always the alpha of punks were minting them, like just do it. And that was like an OG punk project, like Series 1 and Series 2, but the one everyone knows now, and they were much smaller edition sizes, but the one everyone knows now is like the Series 3. And I minted 10 of them, and I got a legendary, but there was like no price movement forever on them. Like they were above mint, I think, but I minted a banana butt legendary for, I didn't know what I was doing. I did a fucking OpenSea auction, and I sold a legendary for 2 ETH. And a couple months later, which I thought was like a really good price, but again, I didn't have any ETH to play around with. A couple months later, like the 9gag CEO bought it for like $100,000, like whatever that equivalent was, something like that.
I mean, you didn't know that at the time.
No, but I didn't have the capital because I didn't sell any NFTs to afford to just even hold one of them.
Yeah,
for a Moonbag. I do a better job with that now.
Good stuff. All right, all. I'm hopping off. Bando, thank you again.
Thank you.
It's really, really awesome, man. Thank you so much for that. And have a good Friday, everyone. Go Niners.
Right back at you, Aslo. TGIF, man.
Thanks, guys. I'll hop down a VC1 for a minute.
Thank you, Bando.
You, Bando.
Later.